What's up, YouTube, and welcome in, Bears fans. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the inaugural Lindemann Show. I'm your host, Cody Lindemann. As I just said, this is the inaugural show. It's the first show. So please bear with me. It might be a little choppy. Transitions might seem weird. Things might just seem a little off. But like I said, please bear with me. It's the first show. I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to put out some great content for you guys and talk about the Bears. So please just bear with me as I work out some kinks in this show. And as I do more and more, it's going to get better, it's going to get smoother, and it'll look more like the YouTube that you're used to seeing. And I just want to take care of some bookkeeping here first. Like all YouTubers say, I'm going to say it too, because if my friends jumped off a bridge, so would I. Please like, please subscribe, please share, and please comment. I implore you to please comment. Here early on in the show, I'm going to have more time to be in the comment section, to reply to you, to see what you're saying down there, and to maybe respond to some of your comments in the show. So I am begging you, here on in the early going, subscribing is awesome. Likes are great. I'm so thankful for those. But also, I'm going to ask you to please leave a comment. Comments are going to be a great way to tell me what you like about the show, what you don't like, what you want to see more of, what you want to see less of. If there's any segment ideas you want to throw out there that you want me to talk about or to do, if there's questions, comments about the team you want me to address, the comment section is going to be a great way to get in contact with me here in the early going of the show. I have a vague idea of where I want this show to go, of how I want to do lives in the future and how I want to do more with this show. But for now, the comment section is going to be a great way to influence how this show grows and evolves. And it's going to help grow the community. So I'm doing this for you. When you comment, I have an ability to learn more about what you as a viewer want, what you want to hear, what you want to see, maybe what production improvements you want to see. You want to see graphics, maybe a better camera, maybe a better microphone. All things like that I'm open to hearing in the comments, and I'm so thankful for everyone who leaves a comment that I can hear your feedback on this show. I'm thankful for everyone joining. I've said my piece about comments. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to beg you here in the early going of this podcast to please leave a comment. But with all that being said, that's enough bookkeeping for now. You're here to talk about the Bears, so let's dive in. What are my thoughts on the 2024 Chicago Bears and what they've done so far in their season? I'm going to come right out and say it. I think they've failed. I don't think there's any other way to say it when you're a 4-10 team. I don't think they have another prospect or another hope of winning a game. Maybe not hope's the right word. They obviously have the hope to win another game. But I don't see a path forward where they realistically win another game. This weekend they're going up against the Lions. Yes, they're tied with the Vikings atop the NFC. But I don't see any way in which the Bears can beat the Lions. I think they're still the best team in the NFC. I think they're still going to be the Super Bowl favorites. I think they're still going to make the farthest run in the playoffs. I think they have a really good shot at winning the Super Bowl this year. Yes, losing David Montgomery hurts, but with a team that has depth like the Lions, they might be able to overcome some of those injuries. But we're not here to talk about the Lions, so I'll stop. Let's talk about the Bears. The Bears' biggest failure this year is obviously the coach. You can't talk about the Chicago Bears team that's 4-10, that is on an 8-game losing streak, without talking about the failures of coaching. Yes, Matt Eberflus was a bad coach for the Chicago Bears. Maybe not bad in his ability to coach the defense. I think he was a great play caller, actually. I think he really helped this Bears defense, and they performed really well under him. But as a coach in the late game situations, he showed time and time again that he just couldn't handle those late game situations. He couldn't make those adjustments. He couldn't call timeouts. He couldn't think fast enough on his feet. And it just was a problem consistently, not only this year, but also reaching back to last year, where he lost some of those games that he he should have no doubt won. And that was a massive problem this year. He also had a problem with culture. I think you can be a decent coach, but the Bears touted their culture. They talked all about their culture, and this culture obviously couldn't withstand all of these losing streaks. And I think it's going to be hard for any coach. In fairness to Matt Eberflus, it's going to be hard for any coach to withstand all of these losing streaks, all of these losses. Any culture is going to be stretched thin. Any culture is going to be really pressed to withstand all the losing that has come under Matt Eberflus as head coach. But you can't tout your culture and then right before you're fired have players openly revolting in the locker room. And that wasn't even the first breach of the culture that we saw. Players have been calling out the coaching staff and Matt Eberflus for weeks and weeks before that. Not in so open ways, but definitely in their press conferences. They've been talking about the failures of the coaching staff and how they thought it wasn't good enough. And this doesn't even talk about Shane Waldron. Matt Eberflus clearly failed in the hiring of Shane Waldron. He didn't last 7 games, or he lasted just 7 games, 7 weeks into the season. And then he got fired. You cannot hire any coach for any reason. And they can't be fired for any reason after just 7 weeks. It's not good enough. It's not long enough. That is a fireable offense for any coach. But what's really the damning part about that situation with Waldron, is that he got fired because he wasn't producing. He had 7 weeks, and he failed so mightily in 7 weeks that he was fired. That is the true problem with Matt Eberflus. He couldn't hire coaching staffs. His culture couldn't withstand all the losing that he did. And then he failed late in game situations. He failed on 3 major fronts of head coaching: culture, hiring your own coaching staff, and then in-game coaching. Those have to be 3 of the biggest pillars of being a head coach, and it seems like Matt Eberflus failed in all of them. Now, to talk about the Chicago Bears themselves, and not just the coaching, although coaching was, I believe, the biggest failure of this team. Let's talk about the Bears. The Bears defense played actually pretty well under Matt Eberflus. It's one of his best qualities as a head coach is his ability to run the defense. Defense played pretty well. After his firing, it's clear they've gone downhill. Eric Washington is not the answer as defensive coordinator, or at least as a play caller. He's struggled, and the defense has gone downhill since the firing of Matt Eberflus. So has the offense. The offense looked like it was going to be rejuvenated under Thomas Brown, and it's not. It hasn't been ever since he moved down to the field. Thomas Brown, when he was in the press box with that bird's eye view, was doing some great work helping Caleb and using an offense that quite frankly isn't his. Thomas Brown is not calling his own offense. He's using Shane Waldron's offense and calling it. It's just too late in the season to really do any drastic changes to the offense, to really implement and make massive changes. But he's running Shane Waldron's offense, and he was doing okay up in the press box. That's where he seemed comfortable, and he was successful up there. I believed, and I was a big proponent, after hearing the argument from other places, that he should have a shot down on the sideline to be the head coach. Has it failed drastically? Yes, 100%. But if he is a serious candidate at all, you needed to see what he could do down on the sidelines, see if he could call an offense from the sidelines, and these 2 games have shown you that I don't think he can. I don't think he can turn it around, and I don't see any way in which he is still a serious candidate after the showing he's had. And that's probably not great for Thomas Brown. You know, he'd probably get head coaching offers from other places, but the Bears is not going to be his place. It's not. It's not going to be where he comes and where he works out as a head coach. And that's fine. It's good to know that. As a Bears organization, like I said, it's probably bad for Thomas Brown or a negative for him. But for the Bears to know that, it's 100% a positive. You need to know that going into the coaching search, hey, this man is either a serious candidate because we saw him go down out of the press box and call the offense that wasn't even his really effectively and still lead the team, or as we're seeing, hey, he came down out of the press box, he really couldn't handle the change. I don't really know how his handling of the team is. It's really hard to tell how the culture is because it's like I said, it's so hard to change. It's not really his. He's just kind of riding out the Eberflus regime. So it's hard to have your own coaching philosophy and culture built. The players seem checked out, but that could be because they were checked out when Eberflus was fired. That could be not Thomas Brown's fault at all. So I think it's hard to judge him on the culture, perhaps, but we can see that offensively he can't be an effective play caller, at least so far in 2 games, and be down on the sideline. Maybe that changes for him, but I still think that these 2 games might be enough of a sample size that the Bears say, no, we're going to go a different direction, but thank you for your service as an interim head coach. And I think that's fair. Now, I just want to have a little discussion about the Bears roster, and I think it's gonna play a prevalent role moving forward as we talk more in this podcast about the Bears organization. But I think the Bears have a pretty good roster. You look at the secondary, Brisker might be done as a Bear. I hate to say it. I love him as a player. He seems like a great guy, and he's a great football player. There's no doubt about that. But this concussion, keeping him out for probably the rest of the season, and the concussion problems he's had so far as a Bear and so far as a player, it really doesn't lend a lot of confidence in my opinion. And quite frankly, it's almost a little scary. I don't think that's the right word, but it's kind of scary that I think he might be done. He might just not be healthy enough to continue as a player in this league, in the NFL. And that's bad to say, but that's just the truth of the business. That's the truth of the industry. That's the truth of the league. But the Bears' secondary is still good. I think their DBs are effective back there. Jalen Johnson's great, and the Bears locked him down, extended him. Kyler Gordon is good in the nickel. Great nickel blitzing, getting in the backfield, making hits. The Bears are not bad on defense. And offensively, the roster's not bad. I think Caleb Williams is the answer. I was a big proponent of them moving on from Justin Fields and picking Caleb Williams and taking that swing. I was happy when they drafted Rome Odunze, although I was cautiously happy. I knew that meant they needed to address the line, and that's a problem that I'm getting to. But they have skill positions. The wide receivers all look good, even though drops have been a problem this year, for sure. But DJ Moore is a good receiver. I think Rome's going to be a good receiver in this league. And Keenan Allen has shown what he can do. There's no question about it that he is a good receiver, even if he's in decline as a good receiver. I think he's still a good receiver in the league. DeAndre Swift, I think he's deadly in space. I think they need to not run him in between the tackles as much, and that's where you see his yards per carry really plummet. That's where you see some of the struggles on offense. But when he is in space, he is as explosive as anyone in the league, and I'm going to stand by that. But now it comes down to the trenches, and that's where the roster is really bad. Offensive line, I think everyone knows the problems there and the health issues. And Nate Davis and Amagaji getting just run past the entire game last time and having Caleb Williams get a strip sack. And that is where the question of the roster really comes into play. So as we move into the second half of this show, once again, I just want to pause and say thank you for joining me on this first show. I'm so thankful you're here. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Turn on those post notifications so you can see when I'm posting something. And like I said, I'm going to say it again. Please, please, please leave a comment. I would love to hear from you in the comment section. Hear what you have to say, and see what your thoughts are on the show and what you want to see change and what you want to see stay the same, perhaps. But that's enough of that. Let's move on to the second half, where I want to talk about Ryan Poles. I think this is, I don't want to say a big decision, but it feels like a big decision. It feels like there's a decision to be made, and maybe it's something that the media is just making up, that Ryan Poles isn't secure in his job. It seems like he is. In the press conference after firing Matt Eberflus and introducing Thomas Brown as interim head coach, Kevin Warren talked about how Ryan Poles would lead this head coaching search. He would be in charge. He would be the final say if there was a disagreement among Warren and Poles. It's hard to believe that a president or anyone in a leadership situation would say, yes, he's going to lead our charge in the off season, and then in just the course of a couple weeks fire that person. I don't see that happening. I really don't. But maybe the question isn't, will Ryan Poles be fired? Maybe the question is, should he? Should he be able to retain his position as Chicago Bears GM? And to that end, I want to bring up what I think are two great points of irony in the Chicago Bears GM situation, let's call it. One is just kind of a sad but funny anecdotal thing. Ian Cunningham, the assistant GM for the Chicago Bears, I think it's very possible he gets hired as a GM somewhere else. It was very possible last offseason. So I think it's very possible it happens this offseason. And there's what I'm going to call a slight, but still a possibility, that Ryan Poles is fired. There's a possibility that the Bears' assistant GM gets hired as a GM somewhere else, and that the Bears' current GM is fired, and the Bears are left in a GM hunt with their assistant GM heading outside the building somewhere else to be a GM for himself in a different organization. That seems like irony to me. I don't know how else to describe it. And the second piece of irony is, I think we're having the same exact discussion that we had last year, but about a different person in the building. We're having the same exact discussion I think we had about Eberflus last year. I think we're having that discussion about Poles this year. Last year, when I look at the Eberflus situation, I thought we should move on. I thought we should line up the quarterback and line up the head coach. And I recognized it probably wasn't fair to Matt Eberflus. Firing him then, I don't think would have given him a big enough body of work. Of course, in hindsight, everyone's like, yes, you should have fired him. And of course you should have. But from that situation, I don't think there was a big enough body of work, especially when you consider the fact that his first season, the Bears were pretty much tanking, tearing everything down. And the Bears really weren't meant to be playoff contenders, maybe in the hunt last year. But I think he should have been fired to line up the head coach and the quarterback and give him a fresh start. And I understood it was not fair to Matt Eberflus. It wasn't fair, but it would have been best for the Bears organization. And I think the same thing this year. Yes, there is a big body of work to judge Ryan Poles on. There's a lot of failures and a lot of successes. But for a GM, I think that runway is longer. That runway of proven work you want to see should be longer. You have to really build a foundation. This isn't just coaching guys that are in front of you. You have to find guys in college. You have to build a draft plan. You have to spend money. I think there's more of a building aspect from a GM position, so they have a longer runway to show their work. So I think, yes, you're probably a year early to fire Ryan Poles. I don't think you've seen a full body of work from a GM yet. I think it would be unfair even. But I think it would be the best for the Bears organization, just like last year. This isn't me advocating for the firing of Ryan Poles, but maybe not the best for the organization, but it would be best for the organization to line up the head coach and the GM and only be 1 year off with the quarterback. And the quarterback obviously isn't going to be coming in this year, but you can be just 1 year off with all those people. And at least you're kind of aligned then. At least you're 2/3 aligned then, instead of 0% aligned. And if you don't fire Ryan Poles, if you don't fire Poles and you instead keep him, it would be very Bears-like to not extend him. That's true. I think that would be super on par with the Bears, but it would be the wrong move. Look, just like Matt Eberflus, when I learned last year the Bears were going to keep him, I said they had to keep him for 2 years. You got to give him 2 years to grow with this quarterback, to make some headway, to coach him up. You have to give him 2 years. Now, when the season went haywire and the Bears started on this massive losing streak, and Matt Eberflus maybe single-handedly cost the Bears 2 to 4 or 5 games, I said, yeah, you probably need to fire him. He's obviously lost the locker room. He's costing your team. He's not helping your team. He's losing your team games. You probably need to fire him. But from the standpoint of what's best structurally, I said 2 years. So to be consistent with that, even though once again things could go haywire, and this could all be a moot point, I think you need to extend Ryan Poles. You need to match him up with your head coach. And you need to do that so you don't have a lame duck, quote, lame duck GM in the last year of his deal with no relief in sight, with no end in sight, who now is trying to save his job. You don't want him making decisions for your team long term unless you say, hey, we're going to keep you around. Because that's when they make big signings. That's when they make big swings and sometimes big misses. That's when the salary cap future doesn't matter as long as this year is good enough to keep my job and we'll kick the can down the road. We'll figure it out later. That's not good process. And the Bears at times seem like the king of not good process. But they fired a coach in season for the first time. Kevin Warren said, hey, it's different with me now. Now that I'm here, it's different. So now's a great time to prove it if you're Kevin Warren. Make the process different. And I'm okay with either one of these. Or at least either one of these is a defendable position. To keep Ryan Poles and extend him and line him up with the next head coach. Or to fire Ryan Poles, hire a new GM, and line up your GM and head coach. I think those are both defendable positions. The one inexcusable position to take is to keep Ryan Poles' contract exactly the same, to have him with 1 year left on his deal, find a new head coach, and make all those free agent signings, and go through another draft, and not give him any runway in the future to have a long-term plan, and to only have his focus be, I have to win now at all cost, because if not, I lose my job. It's a bad long-term process for the organization as a whole. So it's on Kevin Warren to make that decision. And if it sounds like he's going to do what he's going to do, which is keep Ryan Poles around and keep him as the Bears GM, the only answer is to extend him. There is no other answer that's acceptable. That's not an acceptable process if they don't extend him. Now, I just want to take the last couple minutes to just quickly go over whether or not I think they should keep Ryan Poles. And I don't think I have my final decision yet. I want to dig more. I want to see how these final 3 games play out. But around the decision of keeping Ryan Poles, I think is where Kevin Warren needs to be thinking. I think this is the discussion that he needs to have with himself, with George McCaskey, with other people in his leadership circle that are not Ryan Poles, about keeping him. There's definitely been some big failures. Chase Claypool comes to mind. Nate Davis this year, that was a massive failure. Velus Jones Jr. Look, if they're not on the team still, that was a bad signing or a draft pick. It was a failure of a draft pick. Karan Amagaji, thus far, doesn't look great. Third rounders, I think, should be able to start. I'm not signing him off yet. I think there's still time. Maybe he can move inside and play guard. I've heard that theory floated out there. He might be successful there. But as of right now, playing tackle on Caleb Williams' blind side, he has not been effective. There's also some successes of Ryan Poles. Of course, the trade. Some people say it might be the best trade in Chicago sports history. That's a massive success. If you own that title, that's a huge success. Another one is the trade for Montez Sweat, a second rounder, and then you extend him and you keep him here as a premier pass rusher for the Chicago Bears. That's a huge success. Tearing down the team is not really a success. That's kind of a wash. Anyone can do that. The question we need to ask now is that has Ryan Poles built the team back up properly? And if I look around the roster, it seems like a good roster. It seems like good talent. Caleb Williams, that I think was the right move. I think that's a mark in the positive column. Rome Odunze seems like he's going to be a successful wide receiver in this league for a long time. Now the question is, was that the right move? Because when you look at the Bears line on either side of the ball, but especially on the offensive side of the ball when you're trying to develop a rookie, when you look at that offensive line, I don't think there's any way you can say that was a success. I think Ryan Poles has failed there. I think he's failed on the other side of the ball, on the defensive line. He clearly failed with the hiring of Matt Eberflus. And, according to some reports, the keeping of Matt Eberflus was also a failure on Ryan Poles' watch. There's also other successes there. Kyler Gordon looks like he's going to be a great corner or a great nickel. Brisker was a great draft pick and has the possibility, hopefully, I talked about him earlier in the show. I hope he comes back. Hope he continues to have a great career. He looked like a great player and was a massive difference maker when he's on the field. No question about that. So there's definitely two sides to the coin. I don't think there's a way to move forward where you can say, hey, this is an easy decision and Poles should be fired or kept. I think there's arguments for both sides. But Kevin Warren and Bears leadership now need to make a decision about what's best for the organization in the future and moving forward. The problem is I don't have a lot of confidence in them moving forward. I think they've failed several times in different ways. But like I said, I want to hear from you in the comments. What do you think? Do you think the Bears should keep Poles? Do you think they should fire him? Who do you want as the next head coach? Do you trust the Bears brass in the front office to make the correct call about any of this stuff? Let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe. Until next time, this is the Lindemann Show, signing off.